Hey guys, I wanted to share with you something that happens to me. That's happened to me on and off for a little while. I think you guys will get a kick out of it. I was asked by some people if I'm an attorney. The best thing I could do is to say to look up in a law dictionary and look up the word attorney. Obviously, they would probably find out that I'm not. Um, I also might add that I'm not a lawyer either. One of the things I'd love to be considered eventually, at some point in time, is something that the old statutes at large, I believe it's chapter 12, section 14, actually describes as learned in the law. Now, you guys probably, well, many of you guys do, probably know the statutes at large better than I do and its establishment and the rest of it. But the statutes at large, for those that don't know, the were the American jurisprudence, I guess I should say, volumes that actually preceded the United States Code that was replaced, I believe it was in 1925. I'm not exactly sure, right around there. 25, 33, a lot happened around that time. But I was kind of honored by that because I kind of know what they meant. Not that I was crooked or anything, but the fact that I really like to talk about law, and it is one of my true passions that I've had, and because I mention a lot about it and stuff like that. But I think it allowed me to think about that because people really aren't sure kind of where I come from, and they believe I'm anti-government, and that, and I'm an anarchist, and I don't believe in law and all of that. And I think when I first started my I had to explain to my son when he was younger that I'm not anti-government by any stretch. I really believe I'm anti-corruption in government for sure, and I believe in limited government. I don't know how many times I need to say that. But I think I probably needed to go into some better detail, and so I thought I'd make a couple of notes about that. And basically, I spent 2 summers ago going through William Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England, which is where a great deal, or mostly, or where our law was built from through common law. But I wanted to start by, I was actually listening to another series on law through a guy named Herb Titus that kind of reminded me of some things. And, you hear a lot today about the Supreme Court has ruled, and I keep proclaiming and screaming as loud as I can, the courts can't rule! And it seems to fall on deaf ears. But basically, the thing that really comes to my mind is Roe v. Wade in 1973, where SCOTUS and the media today will actually tell you that the Supreme Court legalized abortion. So the question then becomes can a Supreme Court rule, number one, and can they legalize something that was illegal? And so basically what I wanted to tell you is that about my belief and why I believe that, so that I can be a little bit more clear in going forward. I believe that the Supreme Court was actually deemed by our founding fathers to be the most insignificant of the three branches of government in the midst of the checks and balances and all of that. And so they believed that the Supreme Court would actually rarely be used. And we're taking on more of a Politburo style, communist, black robe style, where our judiciary now, because of the ignorance of the people, believe that they're the supreme arbiters of the rights of man, which is highly dangerous and highly inaccurate. The Supreme Court originally, through Blackstone, was to be able to find the law and apply the law, with the basic understanding that law existed when God created it. So it existed even before it was written. And this is something that man believes, and it's, in man's search for reason, it believes that it can trump God's law. So basically, what I wanted to say is that the law really existed outside of the courts. It existed before the courts, before the creation of the courts, and before these people had been appointed. We can look at biblical scripture, we can go through Esther and Daniel, and we can understand at that particular time, that the kings actually made the law because they were the supreme authority. And so really what I wanted to tell you is that the courts really can't legalize, courts can't legalize because they don't have the power to do that. All they can do is give opinions. And their opinions should not be law. What they basically are what they call evidence of law, or the existence of law that has already existed because God created it before our courts. So the other thing that Blackstone had mentioned before is that the judges could actually be mistaken in the law, and that any law that was mistaken by the courts was not only a bad law, but it was no law at all. So you can see how far away from our current American legal system we have gone from what has originated. So basically, I think I remember it was Ecclesiastes chapter 1 or chapter 7, where God refers to what God has made crooked, no man can make straight. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting scripture, because man in its infinite wisdom thinks that it can outdo God by making things straight by what was once crooked. I had some other notes here I wanted to give you if I could. I'm not expecting you guys to watch this or anything, but so my basic premise is that law was created by God. It was not supposed to be invented by man. You know, the rule, Blackstone said that the rule prescribed by the superior is for the inferior to follow. Well, if you follow that into American jurisprudence, what you find out is, who is the superior? Well, today we've been told that the government is superior and the people are inferior. But according to Blackstone, we find something different. If the superior is for the inferior to follow, then in his world the superior was God and the inferior was man. But what I find great about this, if you look into the American jurisprudence system, you'll find that the inferior and the position of the superior are quite different. It's the people that are superior, and is the government the inferior. So if we take Blackstone's law and we apply it today, basically what we're saying is the rule that is prescribed by the government, or by the superior, which is today the government, now is for the superior to follow. If I said that even right. In other words, it's backwards. So we have the servants of the people writing the law that apply and restrict the rights of the master. So now you can really see how our entire legal system is completely upside down. And so there was a couple examples. One of them was obviously the law of gravity, and the fact that he wrote that in creation, before humans, every creature was bound to gravity, because it was a rule that existed before man. Man's probably going to try to figure out how to do that here pretty quick. The other one was kind of interesting too. There was a great example brought by Herb Titus that said, you know, there's a law of nutrition. Now, can you imagine if we tried to eat what he referred to as nuts and bolts? You know, like the metal nuts and bolts? Our body would not take to that very well. So do you think that somehow today man has the power to be able to change the human makeup to the point where we can eat nuts and bolts instead of food? I mean, if man thinks that it can do all of these things and that God doesn't exist, man should surely be able to devise a way to be able to make people eat nuts and bolts. And then, of course, there's the law of morality, and he likens it to building a ship. So man in its infinite wisdom wants to build its own ship and defy the laws of gravity. What would happen to that ship? It'd sink, wouldn't it? Well, what about the ship of state that the man is creating? If he goes outside of God's law, what happens to that ship? It sinks. And I guess I was going to go on and on. Maybe it's kind of boring for you guys or whatever, but I wanted to give people kind of a basis of where my law comes from. I've spent a lot of time in Blackstone's. I love it. And in scriptures, and they're incredibly in sync. So there you go, guys. I hope it helps to help you understand why I think the way I do. So God bless you. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye.